You will be unstoppable. Give me 20 minutes and I'll end your procrastination. But first, subscribe to the channel. Don't leave it for later, because the knowledge you find here will accelerate prosperity in your life. If you feel you know exactly what you need to do, but still freeze up, relax. It's not a lack of character, laziness, or a personality flaw. Yakatur. In fact, it might sound strange, almost controversial, but procrastination isn't your biggest problem. It's just the most visible symptom of something much deeper happening inside your mind. And what if I told you that the more you try to motivate yourself, the worse the situation becomes? That's right. It seems counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense when you understand how the brain really works. Maybe you've already tried everything: lists, planners, motivational videos, promises of, "This time it'll work." It works for a day, two, and then everything goes back to normal. Frustration grows, guilt weighs heavily, and that feeling of falling behind begins to gnaw at you from the inside. The detail that almost no one tells you is that your brain wasn't made to think about the future. It was made to seek immediate relief. And until you learn to play this game the right way, procrastination will always seem stronger than you. But here's the good news, and it's quick. You don't need to change your entire life, become a different person, or wait for motivation to fall from the sky. In just a few minutes, you can flip an internal switch that changes your relationship with action, focus, and discipline. It's not magic, it's strategy. It's not willpower, it's command. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll understand why some people seem unstoppable, while others remain trapped in the almost. The true root of procrastination, it's not laziness, plus the dopamine cycle. You think your stress comes from what you do, but look, it almost always comes from what you do. No, it's as if each postponed task becomes an open file inside your head, running in the background, draining your energy without you realizing it. Procrastination seems harmless. I'll do it later, but it takes its toll. And worse, you get tired without even having produced anything, because your mind is in alert mode all day. Then you want to focus, but you're trying to focus with your head full of invisible pending tasks. Now here's the not-so-obvious part. Procrastination isn't a lack of discipline. It's a mistraining of your reward system. Your brain is addicted to quick relief, and dopamine is the messenger of this. When you avoid a boring task and pick up your phone, watch a short video, eat something, you feel an, better, right? But this relief is cheap, very short-term dopamine. And the brain learns, when you feel discomfort, run away. The result? Your productivity drops, focus becomes a battle, and procrastination becomes an automatic habit. And here's where you start to turn the tables. Instead of waiting for motivation, you create traction. Just a small step, like just 5 minutes. Because the good dopamine appears after you start, not before. Take something you're putting off today and make a simple deal. 5 minutes without negotiation. No open tabs, no notifications, no phone nearby. Just you and the action. When you start, the brain changes the signal. What was weight becomes movement. And in the next step, you'll understand how to set up an entry trigger so simple it seems silly. But it becomes a daily discipline key that almost no one uses. The invisible mistake that keeps you stuck. Negotiating with your own mind. The problem isn't starting difficult. It's over-negotiating before even beginning. Every time you think, just one more minute, I'll do better later, now isn't the ideal time. You're creating space for your rational brain to sabotage action. And here's the stark truth. The more you think, the less you act. Your brain wasn't made to decide endlessly. It was made to execute clear commands. When you leave the decision open, it always chooses the most comfortable path. And there goes your focus. There's a silent pattern here that almost no one notices. Over-planning, over-organizing, consuming productivity content without taking action. All of this gives a false sense of progress. It gives that, okay, I'm doing something, but deep down you're just postponing the real discomfort of action. It's procrastination dressed up. It looks like preparation. It sounds intelligent, but it doesn't move life an inch. It's like studying maps for years and never leaving the house to travel. The turning point begins when you stop negotiating and start taking charge. Thought about it? Act on it. It's that simple. A practical rule. Once you have an idea, you have 5 seconds to move before doubt creeps in. Get up from your chair, open your file, grab your notebook. Take that first physical step. This short action silences the mental noise. And when you feel that first micro-advance, something changes inside. Because now your brain begins to understand who is in control, and this prepares the ground for the next level, where language and identity begin to work in your favor. The internal language that sabotages or liberates your action. Few people realize it, but the way you talk to yourself determines whether you act or freeze. When you say, "I have to do this," your brain hears weight, obligation, pressure, and immediately tries to escape. It's funny but true. The body reacts to words even before logic comes into play. Language creates chemistry, and chemistry creates behavior. If every task is accompanied by a heavy discourse, focus becomes the enemy and procrastination kicks in as an automatic defense. Now, switch to a simple yet powerful approach. Instead of "I have to," try "I choose to do," or even better, "I am the kind of person who does this." It seems like a small detail, but it changes everything. When you talk about identity, the brain stops arguing and starts aligning actions. It's as if something internal says, "Okay, if this is who I am, then let's go." This shift in language reduces resistance and increases productivity without needing brute force. And here's a practical adjustment that almost no one applies. Body posture plus internal dialogue. Don't try to focus slumped over, hunched over, almost apologizing for the task. Stand up, adjust your body, take a deep breath, and declare, even in a low voice, something simple like, "I act now." This physical-emotional command creates a different mental state. And when this state begins to repeat itself, day after day, you realize that acting becomes more natural, which opens up space for something even more crucial. A clear vision of the future that pulls you forward, even when the will to do so fades. A clear vision of the future, the silent antidote to procrastination. If you don't know exactly where you're going, any distraction seems like a good destination. Procrastination gains strength when the future becomes hazy, distant, too abstract. Your brain works by anticipation. It only releases focus and energy when it sees a reward ahead. Without a clear image of what you want to become, the present rules, and the present always prefers comfort. That's why so many people are busy but not productive. Here's a simple yet powerful practice. Create a vivid, emotionally charged image of yourself a year from now, free from procrastination. It's not a long list, it's about clarity. Imagine how you feel when you wake up, how you work, how you handle decisions, how your day flows. Think about just 3 things: what you do differently, how your mind works, and who you've become. The more concrete the image, the more your brain understands that acting now is worthwhile. Turn that vision into a daily question. Does this choice bring me closer to or further away from this version of myself? This cuts negotiations off at the root. Turning on your phone, postponing, running away. Everything starts to seem too expensive. When the future pulls, the present obeys. And in the next step, you'll learn how to use rewards the right way to teach your brain to enjoy the effort, without sabotaging yourself in the process. The right reward at the right time. Teaching the brain to enjoy effort. If you put in effort and don't reward yourself, your brain learns a dangerous lesson. This only hurts. Then, next time, It pulls the brakes before you even start. It's not a lack of willpower, it's poor conditioning. Sustainable productivity doesn't come from torturing yourself. It comes from teaching the reward system that focus pays off. And here's the irony. Many people even work hard, but never close the dopamine cycle the right way. The rule here is simple. Once you've finished a real block of work, signal victory. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It could be getting up from your chair, taking a deep breath, mindfully having a coffee, listening to music for 2 minutes, or even mentally saying, "Good job." Sounds silly? Maybe. But the brain doesn't judge. It registers patterns. Action followed by reward creates a desire to repeat. Without it, procrastination returns disguised as tiredness. When you get the timing right, something curious happens. Focus stops being a source of suffering and becomes an interesting challenge. You start to feel pleasure in completing tasks, not just in consuming distractions. That's when productivity starts to work on its own, without constant internal struggle. But there's still a crucial detail missing. What to do when you fail, break the rhythm, or slip back into an old habit. And that's exactly where most people give up, without realizing they were one step away from a turning point. What to do when you fail, and why it decides everything. At some point, you will fail. You will break the routine. You will postpone something again. You will find yourself repeating an old pattern. This is not an exception. It's part of the process. The mistake is not in failing. The mistake is in the meaning you give to failure. When you make a mistake and think, "See, that's just how I am," you transform a slip-up into identity. And then procrastination ceases to be a behavior. It becomes who you believe yourself to be. This is where a shift in mental maturity comes in. People who overcome procrastination aren't those who never make mistakes. They're those who recover quickly. They don't wait for next Monday, next month, or the perfect moment. They fall and get back on the same day, sometimes even at the same time. A delay doesn't cancel out the whole day. A bad choice doesn't invalidate all the progress. This simple thought keeps the brain in the game, instead of throwing it into guilt. So create a personal rule. If you fall, get back up. No drama, no mental whipping, no harsh speeches. Something like, "Okay, I slipped. Now I continue." This short response prevents the negative dopamine of guilt from taking over. And when you learn to get back up quickly, you build something much stronger than discipline: consistency. And it is this silent consistency that prepares the ground for the final level, transforming all of this into a daily, almost automatic ritual, where taking action becomes a natural part of your day. Daily ritual. When action stops depending on willpower. There comes a point when you realize something liberating. Productive people don't make decisions all the time. They follow rituals. Willpower is unstable. Emotions fluctuate. Motivation fades. Ritual remains. When you transform action into ritual, the brain stops arguing and starts obeying. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't negotiate, you simply do it. And it's precisely this level of automation that weakens procrastination at its root. A ritual doesn't need to be long or complicated. It just needs to be repeatable and clear. It can always be at the same time, in the same place, with the same start button. A specific coffee, a song, an open notebook, the cell phone out of reach. This set of signals tells the brain, now it's time to act. Over time, the body enters action mode almost on its own, without drama, without excessive resistance. When you live like this, something changes in your identity. You stop being someone who tries to focus and become someone who simply begins. Productivity becomes a consequence, not a daily struggle. And this is where everything comes together. Dopamine, focus, vision, language, reward, functioning as a single system. Now, before closing this cycle, there is something essential that needs to be said. something that will tie it all together in a simple, practical, and definitive decision. The final decision: to act despite the feeling, the point of no return. There is a silent moment when everything is defined. It's not when you understand the most, nor when you feel motivated. It's when you decide to act, despite that feeling. Because the truth is this: the feeling of not wanting to do something will never completely disappear. Waiting for it to vanish is the ultimate trick of procrastination. People who move forward don't feel ready. They feel committed, and commitment speaks louder than emotion. When you understand this, something internal shifts. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "Does this need to be done now?" This simple change removes emotion from control and puts decision-making in the driver's seat. Action ceases to be negotiable. And the more times you act even without the desire, the more your brain learns that you are reliable, that your decisions don't depend on mood. This generates internal respect, and internal respect generates focus. This is where you cross an invisible line. Procrastination loses its power because it no longer finds room for conversation. You act tired, you act out of fear, you act without inspiration, and you discover something liberating. Action creates energy, not the other way around. This is the point of no return, where everything discussed so far becomes living practice. Now all that remains is to tie it all together into a clear vision of daily choice. Simple, direct, and inevitable. The daily choice that defines who you are becoming. Ultimately, it all comes down to a simple choice, repeated every day: to act or to procrastinate. It's not an epic decision, nor a cinematic moment. It's silent, almost banal. It's getting up when your body asks for 5 more minutes. It's starting when your mind says, "later." Naidi, it's choosing to do the basics well, even when no one is watching. These choices seem small, but they are what shape who you are becoming. Every time you act, you send a clear message to yourself: "I fulfill what I decide." And the brain learns quickly. It begins to align itself, to collaborate, to release energy at the right moment. Similarly, every time you postpone, you reinforce the old pattern. There is no neutrality here. Either you are training action, or you are training procrastination. The good news? Every day the score is reset. When you understand this, the weight lifts off your shoulders. It's not about changing your entire life today. It's about winning. Choose now. One action, one step, a short block of focus. And when this pattern repeats, something powerful happens. You stop trying to be disciplined and start being consistent. And it is precisely this consistency that opens up space for the next move. The one that ties everything together in a strong introduction, capable of pulling anyone into the conversation from the very first second. If you've made it this far, you've already realized that procrastination has never been about lack of time, lack of talent, or lack of motivation. It's always been about who's in control, you or the impulse for immediate comfort. Now the question is direct, almost uncomfortable. What are you going to do with everything you've just learned? Are you going to treat this content as just another interesting video, or are you going to turn it into real action today? Look at your life honestly. How many opportunities have you postponed waiting for the right moment? How many small decisions have you put off, thinking they wouldn't make a difference? What if those very small choices are defining everything? What if the version of yourself that you admire so much is just one decision away? The decision to start even without the desire? So do this. What is the first action? What will you take when this video ends? Not tomorrow, not Monday, now. Write it down mentally. Choose something simple and begin. 5 minutes, one step, one movement. Because while many people continue thinking, you've already understood that taking action creates energy, creates focus, and creates a new mental pattern. And now I want to know from you. What else made you realize that procrastination no longer controls you? Comment below. If this video helped you in any way, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep walking with us. Here you don't just learn to understand the mind, you learn to control it.